Hey everyone, welcome to the Intelligent Conversations podcast, where we believe everyone has a form of intelligence that resides within them. Our goal is to encourage these type of conversations for our audience to listen to. Without further ado, welcome to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today I have the honor to speak with Shane Salk. He is a studio owner and audio drama podcast creator and producer. He has also worked for Disney as a voiceover actor and has appeared in shows we've all heard of, like American Dad. He has bounced around from career to career, and if I were to list them all right now, I'd probably run out of breath because it's just crazy the amount of things he's done and just the variety of fields that he's gone into. So Shane, thanks for coming on. I'm really excited to hear what you have to share with us today and the thoughts that you have. So could you start by, just kind of telling us how you got to where you are today? How did you become an audio producer?
Probably. I don't know. That's the quick answer. So I grew up, I went to college for theater. I grew up an actor, theater actor. I did film, TV, stuff like that. And then when I graduated, I grew up from an early age of like 4, listening to audio cassettes of old radio shows from like the 40s and 50s.
So cool.
Yeah, the comedies like Jack Benny, Bob Hope. There are, radio old, the sitcoms like I Love Lucy was sort of originated a show called My Favorite Husband, Gunsmoke, Suspense, all these random things that nobody's ever heard of anymore. But I grew up listening to those. I think my parents were just trying to keep me off of TV for the most part, and it seemed to work. So when I graduated in 2008, and it was the height of a recession and couldn't find work.
Yeah.
Even, acting work aside, I, couldn't find janitorial work. Like I couldn't find anything. It was very, very difficult. And at the time, a friend of mine and I were working on some stuff, and we decided to make it into an audio series. I didn't have any experience with, this, like technology, but he did. And I had all this experience with how these things can sound. And so we did that, and that went very, very well. It was all out of pocket. It was very, very hard. And it was back in the day when podcasting wasn't really known,
like a big thing at all.
So when that stopped, I worked with Disney on their Disney cruise ship. I performed with them. I moved to New York, and I had done a radio version of A Christmas Carol with my partner Bill Holmes. And I always was sort of reaching out, trying to figure out how to fund the next project, because I wanted to do it right. I wanted to do it well. I didn't want to be working as a telemarketer at the same time and all these things. So over the course of time, I was developing skills, pitching ideas, trying to start this company, working as a carpenter. And then we got this opportunity, a studio in Los Angeles. I was living in New York. The studio that Bill was teaching out of had an open space. So we ended up taking over that studio to sort of produce the show Carcerum that we do, and we've put out season 1 of. And then through that, it developed into an entire thriving business where we record people and we produce audio series and commercials, and we do live video or live game shows and live streaming and stuff, just to keep ourselves entertained.
That's so cool. I actually I got into podcasting about June, so I'm coming close to a year now, so it's exciting. And again, I kind of want to note on how you said 2008, no jobs. I'm like, we're kind of coming into a period where I think I actually have a pretty decent like chance, right? Like it's I think opportunity, and I love that you like took it upon yourself. You're like, I'm still gonna do what I love. I'm still gonna go out and try my own, and you still worked on the side, you still did that, and you chased your dream. And I really love that you did that. So I kind of want to, get into more depth of, uh, I, I recently saw that Twitter, they do the whole, like, what is it? The spaces, right? Where you can come on and it's like almost a live audio type of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think about that?
It's sort of it's a little bit like Clubhouse, right? If
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. So I have no problem with any of it. The interesting thing about all of it is when it becomes, so one of the things that I have, this is a roundabout way of answering your question, I promise. I hope I promise. If I forget your question,
I'll keep you on track, don't worry.
Um, it's sort of like one of the things that was very interesting about, because we were, back in 2008, we were one of the very first audio drama things that did what we were doing. And and with Carcerum, I still don't see a lot of companies doing what we're doing, where it's incredibly cinematic. We have 120 characters in the first season.
Wow.
We frame it as a movie that you listen to, that sort of epic. And when you go to a podcast convention, or you have podcast talks or speakers or anything like that, 95% of the time they speak in a way which they're only talking to a talk show audience, where they're thinking that podcasting is just one thing. And I relate that to Clubhouse, to this Twitter thing, because I think it's really, really great that there's this tool that you can use for this thing. But people get so bogged down in what they're being told to do with a tool, or bogged down into saying, oh, well, this is what it is, that I think if you open your mind and go, well, this is the tool, what else can we do with it? It's incredible. It's really, really cool. And I think our studio is doing very well. We don't have a whole lot of money. We didn't have large investors that put in $1 million in anything. We rent the building, but we do these live game shows every other Friday. The reason we started them was because during the pandemic, we were very bored and we were trying to keep from going crazy. So we started doing these things. Every tool that I have to do that streaming, a lot of the time we're solving problems with tools that aren't designed for that problem. So it's, what do we have in the closet that can solve this problem that we have without spending money, but make it look like we have a lot of money and we know what we're doing. And I think that is a key to utilizing these Clubhouse things, this Twitter thing. I think when people start opening their mind to go, well, what else can this do for us, instead of just be this sort of talk space where people come in and, they go, well, you got to do Twitter and you got to do Clubhouse because that's where you get an audience, to take that audience to your podcast. And from your podcast, you take them to buy your book. And I'm like, well, let's look at the tool here and utilize this tool to the best of our ability, and not just make it a stepping stone to other things, but also make it an entity in itself. And I think it's a very exciting time and tool, but I don't know if, sometimes these spaces get, bogged down with the self-help space, which is not bad, but then everybody else gets pushed out, or they feel like, oh, well, that's what that's for. And I think that if we expand our minds of what we can do with these tools, it'll be really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the things I've noticed, just generally, I bet you're the same, but in my life, like just in general, if you don't have variety, then you tend to get like very, very like tunnel vision, right? Of like, oh, this is how it works. And then all of a sudden, if you take away like that tunnel vision, you're like, oh shoot, like I actually have like a wide scope. Like there's this option, this option, this option. And an example that I like to use is when I graduated high school back whenever, I had the chance to talk with, just buddies and all that. And some went to college, some went to trade school, some went to all these, a variety of things, right? And I'm like, honestly, this is like the coolest thing, that we just have a variety of options these days. And I think it's the same thing with you. Like, it's like in your like business model here, it's like, hey, most people are focusing, like they're getting that tunnel vision. And it's like, no, we need to actually like expand and say, hey, we can target this in different ways. So I kind of want to get more of your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on tunnel vision? And like, here, let me rephrase that. What is the difference for you between tunnel vision and focus?
That's a great question, and that's I think what we're driving at is tunnel vision is the idea that it has to be done one way, and that's the only way to do it. Um, that if somebody comes in and goes, oh, you can do this other thing and get to the same place, and they go, no, that doesn't work. And if you come up with a roadblock, you're like, well, we have to pass this roadblock. We have to drive through this instead of seeing another way around. Focus is the idea of the destination in many ways, or the at least the direction, because my focus, and your focus can change from
Yeah.
month to month, day to day, week to week kind of thing. So getting out of school, I was focused on acting, and that's it is still a primary focus of mine. I really love doing it. It's to the back burner at the moment because we're producing so many things. But within that journey, I discover so many different things, and I go, well, let me try this, let me try that, let me try this, and then that can become a focus. If it's tunnel vision, um, I wouldn't be able to see anything else. I wouldn't be able to see the roses through the thorns or whatever. And um and then you kind of will find, because this has happened to friends of mine, when they get to a place where they're like, this is where I've been trying to get to, and they're like, wow, I hate it here. Um but in that same aspect, if you're happy with it, there's nothing wrong with it. There are companies that go, or people that start a company and go, look, this is what I want to do. This is the only thing I want to do. So somebody goes, well, why don't you also do this? You go, yeah, that's not enjoyable to me. I don't want to do that. That's not tunnel vision. That's not seeing these opportunities. It's going, this is the path I want to go. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But I think a lot of people judge people who go, yeah, I don't really like that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. When it comes to, sorry to like change gears on you here, but it just kind of
Anyway,
came to me. But I mean, I know you talked about how like you kind of found your passion for acting and doing all of that, like when you were little and listening to the audio tapes. And I kind of want to know like what really like sealed the deal for you and said, no, this is what I want to do with my life.
um, in terms of acting, so I did love the tapes. I did plays when I was in kindergarten and stuff, and then I did plays throughout middle school, and I really enjoyed it and I loved it. And I'm sure I got praised for it in the ways that we did, and I felt comfortable doing it. Um, and when I went to high school, I had a pretty hard time in high school. Not because I was bullied in middle school, but in high school I wasn't bullied much, and I had a grew a sense of humor in which I found that if I can make other people laugh at the bully will leave me alone because they're stupid. Um, and that was my defense mechanism. But my first semester of high school, I decided I wasn't going to do the play because my parents were like, "Don't do the play. We need to get you in." We need to like get you settled in it. I'm dyslexic, so people were very much worried about me at all times. Um, and I can tell you more stories about that, but I'm very smart in those ways, but my spelling and stuff, people look at it and like, you're an
Mhm.
idiot. I'm like, well, okay. Um, but I didn't do the play my first semester and I was miserable. I was really unhappy. I played soccer, I did other stuff, but I really wasn't happy. And the second semester they were doing Damn Yankees, and I applied for the class or whatever, and I didn't get it. And every day I went to the counselor, the person that does the schedule,
Yeah.
and I said, "Hey, I need to get into this class." And she says, okay, I'm working on it. I have to have a talk with the teacher and stuff. And I went every single day. And then eventually, I don't think they were keeping me from it. It wasn't the front of their mind. So I made sure it was the front of their mind. And I got into it, and I was so much happier knowing that I was going to do that every day than the semester before. Um, it didn't matter that I was a freshman, that I was a small part, that I was in the chorus, anything like that. I just wanted that environment, and was incredibly safe for me. I enjoyed it. Um, so I went to school for theater acting, because by that point I was like, well, this is I don't people I, counselor sits down and goes, what do you want to do? And I go, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot every time, because they always try to talk you out of it, not the counselors, but even when you got to, I went to get a BFA in theater, and the first day as a freshman, they sit you down, they sit all of them down, and basically kind of try to talk you out of it, going, this is not going to be enjoyable. If there's anything else that you want to do it. Most of you are going to drop out. Like,
They tell you to quit.
And they're not necessarily trying to like be mean about it, but they're like, this is what you have to look forward to. By the end of the first semester, half the people had dropped out. By the end, I came in with 50 something people, and we left with 12, something like that. So it was numerous days I would wake up and I go, man, I wish that I wanted to do anything else besides this. If anything else would make me happy, I would do it. Because especially when you get out of school, it becomes, once you get that job, it's wonderful. But it's all the work to get that job, to run these things, is miserable. And I make the joke, I said, the worst thing to happen to an actor when they're thinking about giving up is that they get a job. Because they'll get that job, they'll get a theater job or something, and they'll remember how much they love it and how much it feels like it, completes them. It's not, for some people it's an ego thing, for some people it's an admiration thing, but for me, for the people that really have that passion, it's about the love of it, and the environment, and the creativity, and the work that you put into it. It's really about the work that makes us happy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that. I kind of want to get your thoughts on this, but it's almost like it was a process to get to that point, right? Like, it's like while you're there, it's like the result itself was like, oh, this is fun, this is enjoyable, I love it, right? But it's like the process of actually getting there was just, for you especially, just way more enjoyable than the actual, like, people I think oftentimes look at the result of what people get and they're like, hey, like, I want that. I'm like, well, you don't see the process of them getting to there. And I think you talked about that when you said they sat you all down to say, hey, this is what you have to look forward to, this is hard. I think it was kind of good on them, because it's like, hey, like, no, this is like seriously what's going to happen. And if you're willing to put it in, then you will get this, right? You will get this.
And I remember out of that first day, terrified, but also when I looked around and they asked how many people were something. It was in my head. The question was, how many people think they might quit? And that was not the direct question, but that's what I got out of whatever and so many people raised their hands. I was blown away, because that never occurred to me as an option. That never occurred to me. I had done all of this stuff, and it wasn't like, I don't know what I want to do. I mean, this was fun, but what do I do? It was, it just never occurred to me that this wasn't what I was going to continue to try to do, because it was the only thing that I've struggled with depression. When I went to college, I had a worse time than my freshman year of college. I would wake up every day with a stomach ache. I went to get checked for ulcers. It wasn't ulcers. It was anxiety and depression, all this stuff. And the only thing, every single day that I had a theater class, because the first semester you have like a book theater class, and then a voice and movement intro to theater class.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I had that voice and movement intro to theater. I felt great by the end of the day, and every other day was a struggle. And it was those kinds of things that made me go, well, you don't have much of a choice.
Well, I think also everything like worthwhile in life, like anything that you want, like that is good, I feel like there has to be struggle, right? Like you have to have struggle in order to get something worthwhile. And if you don't struggle to get towards something, I think you have to like ask that question yourself. You have to say, hey, like, is this something that like maybe you're just naturally gifted at it? But I love the famous phrase where it's like, if you really love what you're doing, you're never going to work a day in your life. I feel like a lot of people go into life and they're just like, oh, I need a job. I'm like, no, seriously, go find something you love. Like we have the internet, for crying out loud. We can make so much money actually doing something that we enjoy doing. Like, I mean, you as an example, like you went and you found, hey, we like this medium you can use, and you're like, let's do this. And I love that. There's those opportunities for us there. And I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that. How would you say that you've been given more opportunities in life, like just because of the internet and because of just things like that?
So I'm pretty sure I'm a little bit older than you. Um, my when I was in high school, um, we still had a requirement of we had it was like you could use one or two internet sources, but you had to go to the library and get books. So I come from a generation, a lot of people, it's like between between X and millennial. Um, we didn't have smartphones until I graduated college, but we had, about right after, I was in high school during September 11th.
Wow.
So yeah, so when that happened, everybody started getting cell phones because they want to be able to contact you. The internet was around, but we were using it for, it wasn't the
It
deep
wasn't what it was
source.
today.
Not what it was today. Facebook, when I was a freshman in college, Facebook existed for my school the second semester. So it started out, you could only have it if you were in college with a college email address and only certain schools, and then it grew. Um, so we were taught in a almost a, in our classes and the environment that we had, almost from people who had um like an analytical way of doing things, not an analytical, like non-electronic. It was whatever. So it was, you have to go to these places, you have to get these, publications, you have to do these
Yeah.
things. Then everything changed. So we got out of school, there were no jobs, you couldn't work from home, the internet wasn't as big a thing as you can work from it. So my generation really had to adapt from what we were taught, even though we had like technology skills because we grew up with technology
Yeah.
advancing quickly. But it was still not super innate. It wasn't like, well, I remember a time when there was no internet. I remember getting my family getting their first computer. I was like 5, but
Huh.
it was a time. Um, so the internet is an amazing resource, and I literally learned how to run the technology that we have in the studio. I have done our live streaming, everything. Majority of what I do, I've learned from like YouTube videos or the internet or searching or solving problems. So you can absolutely solve your problems that way or find experts to help you do it that way. And it's an amazing tool. Um, I will disagree slightly with the idea that if you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think a lot of artists will disagree with that. I think it's, if you find something you love, do it. And you'll work for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get paid very little for it, but you won't want to do anything else. Because if somebody's paying me, I work for this amount of time. If I'm
Yeah.
doing my stuff and there's nobody looking over my shoulder, I'm going to work my ass off for that exact thing all the time, but I'm going to love doing it. And it's a grind, because especially nowadays, it's not like, oh, you have somebody doing PR, oh, you have somebody doing your, Google searches, oh, you have somebody posting. You kind of have to do it all until you get a lot of funding and you can hire people to do individual things. And
Yeah.
It's people expect more out of you because the internet's a thing. So I think there's a coming of something where people are going to start putting their foot down, going, I don't do all of those things for you. I can't. I don't have. They're like, well, the internet's here. I don't have email alerts on my phone because I will check my email when I want to check my email. But there are some people that are like, no, if I send you an email and you don't get back to me in 5 minutes, I go, if I don't get back to you in 5 minutes, I'm doing something else. If you need me, you call me or text me. That's not how this is going to work because I can't work under those conditions. I don't function like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to just, I think we've started to develop a society where we crave instant gratification, right? Where it's like when you are asking for something, you're like, no, I want it now. But when you're actually giving something, it's like, no, like this takes time. I'm also doing it for other people. Like you're not like this one person that's special. I also have 100 others, right, that I have to deal with. And it's like, I think that it's a lot of, I think a lot of people need to like take a step back and develop patience. And like if they could just develop patience and be like, hey, this person has a life too. Because I think we're also just not having that human interaction as much. We're like, hey, you go and talk with someone in person, like that's how you did it in the day. You called them on the phone, right? But now it's just you send a text or you send an email, and it's like you have no idea what the tone is over like and what you're going to receive. So I kind of want to ask the intelligent question of the day here.
I'm ready.
All right, let's hear your intelligent answer. So what would be the best way you would say for someone to develop patience so then we're not having that issue that we just talked about?
So there's a couple things about patience. There's the patience of, where's my food? It's been, 5 minutes. I need patience.
Yeah.
And then there's patience of like, we have our show come out. My expectation is not met. And is that because my expectation is off or because we didn't, put the work in to get to that point? The there are the number one thing that I will say for anybody to be successful, in my opinion, with patience, with being a human being, is self-awareness. 100,000%. Your awareness of what you require, what you want, how you're affecting other people, and how other people are making you feel and how you're making them feel. That doesn't mean you have to cater to like your actions always are important because if you are making somebody feel a certain way, that's bad. You're not responsible always for that other person's feelings. But if you have the self-awareness to go, okay, let's take a step back. They got very upset. Did I do something wrong? Does that make, how does that affect me and what I'm doing? That alone will help your patience because your expectations are usually what is making you impatient. If somebody said, hey, this is going to take 25 minutes and it takes 35 minutes and you're like, where the hell is it? I'm impatient. That feels like you're being impatient. You're like, just wait a second. But I was expecting 25 minutes. Same goes with success. We get really impatient about it. I put in all of this work. I just want the show to hit. I want it to be a success. I want to get the 1,000,000 downloads. And you go, great. But that's your expectation or of how much work it takes to reach something. Or I've done all of the steps I need to reach something and it hasn't happened. What the hell? The rest of my family are all doctors. And they have in many ways, it's a very set path. It's You go to grad school, then medical school, then your internship, then your residency, or whatever the hell it is. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen when they talk. So, but most of our lives aren't like that. Trade school, if you're be part of a union, it's similar. It can be. You go to trade school, you join the union gets you work. And just FYI for people out there, the difference between a union and a guild is the union will get you work, a guild won't. So if you're ever like, I am in the actors union, you're not, you're in the actors guild. I am in two of them joined. I'm in SAG and equity, which are stage and screen.
Mm-hmm.
They're guilds. They were not going to get you work. So the unions, a carpenter's union, an electrician's union will help you get work. They have a path. So there is an expectation. If I went to college for 4 years, I was expecting to go for 4 years. If I went for 7, I get very impatient. If they kept being like, well, you got to go for another year. Well, I'd be like, well, what the hell? So I think self-awareness of what other people are going through, what you're going through, and what you're putting out in the world is the number one tool for patience and for just being a happier person.
I love that. Like that right there is the intelligent answer of the day right there. I love the self-awareness is, who was it that I was listening to? There's a guy I listened to and the name slipped my mind, but he talks about self-awareness and he's like, I want to touch on how you said you'll just be a happier person. It's like, yes, because you're aware of, oh, this person may not like this, or, oh, this person may expect this. I could see why they're upset, right? All these things. And I think that, in my opinion, I'll kind of get that and then we'll begin wrapping up. But I think self-awareness is, if not one of the most important things that's like important soft skill a person can have. I don't know if you agree with that.
I absolutely do. I 100% agree. And there's something that a friend of mine told me once, and it was, don't assume what somebody else is doing, but notice how it makes you feel. So I call somebody 3 times and they don't call me back. I could assume that they don't want to talk to me, that they're ignoring my calls, that I could assume they're dead. I could assume all these things. But it really doesn't matter what the reason is. It matters how I feel about it. And it doesn't make me feel good. Or that makes me feel worried. So I have to go do something about it. And I have to go track them down and make sure they're okay. But if it doesn't make me feel good, then I have to have the awareness of going, oh, this doesn't make me feel good, because it's not that person's making me feel something, because they don't really have the ability to do that, which I think is a bullshit thing to say, but it's kind of true. Their actions internally make me have a reaction and make me feel internally. So I have the ability to go, I'm out of here. It's not as easy as that in any way, shape, or form, but that's breaking it down to like ones and zeros. But
yeah,
I go, yeah, this person doesn't, this energy or whatever you want to say, I have the awareness of, it's not a right, it's not a wrong, it's just that it's not where I want to be. So it's a hard, and it's not easy. That's the other thing. It's a lot of times it's like, oh, now that I'm aware of what I have to do, I have to go do it. No, it's a lot harder than that. I know I have to learn algebra, but it's not easy. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle, but that's something that you can always work on. So that's nice.
Yeah, I like the thoughts that you've been circling around today. I think you've had a lot of just great things to say, great points. And I kind of, as we're going to wrap up here, what do you want the audience to take away from you? What do they want to remember about you?
Well, I want them to go listen to Carcerum.
Okay.
www.thecarcerumtheseries.com. That's CARCEREM, theseries.com. Other than that, I want them to, let's be honest here. I want them to know that as a human being, I'm trying my best, and that is enough. I want them to know that my personal belief is that one of the biggest downfalls of art at all is ego. that if you're doing a project with somebody and you're having fights about it, and it comes down to, well, I want my idea because it's an ego-based thing, or I need people to know that this is mine. I need people to know. Ego is the death of art to me. If somebody says something, I'm like, oh, that does make it better. I don't care whose idea it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's art, business, relationships, personal advice, self-awareness, and ego. Those are the two things to walk away from. I mean, have self-awareness, but try not to, and be aware of your ego.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know you dropped your website there, but could you talk about could you drop your, if people want to reach out to you, or if they want to, things like that?
You can find me personally on social media at just at Shane Salk on Instagram or Twitter, Facebook. You can always reach out to the show. If you search CARCEREM, Carcerum, on any podcasting platforms, and you'll find the show. And you can also, on our website, reach out. We have a contact us, but I answer instant messages on Facebook or Instagram. Oh, also something to remember for me anyway, and I think a lot of people, if you reach out to somebody and they don't get back to you, try again. Because sometimes someone will reach out to me and ask me a question, even somebody that I know, and I would be like, oh, I'll get to this later because I'm in the middle of something.
Mm-hmm.
And a week later, it's gotten pushed down to my email. I've forgotten about it. And if they reach out again, I'm happy to help. I do it all the time with people. I go, hey, I didn't hear from you last week. Just wanted to check in again. I know you're busy, but there you go.
Yeah, thank you for that. So for those of you that are listening, if you want to go check out Shane there, then he just dropped the information there. I would definitely recommend you should go give it his show a listen. And also, if you want to get into that field, you should reach out to him and he should give you some tips and stuff. So Shane, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed the thoughts that you had here. Thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed what you had to say.
Absolutely. I enjoyed myself thoroughly. Anytime.
So everyone, that is Shane Salk. As you can tell, he's a very intelligent person, has great things to say. I would take a lot of his points that he made today to heart. And stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up. See you guys next week, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com, and there should be a form there for you guys to fill out. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.